Blood Bowl Solid Play tutorial. My name is Joyful Rogue. This is recorded as a milestone reward for reaching 66% of the second quarterly goal for 2015. Allow me to thank you for your support by recording a guide that will let you play a solid Blood Bowl match. It's supposed to be a guide for people who know the rules, not complete beginners. You need to know the rules and how to play overall, know the interface, etc. But it will teach you a set of solid practices that you can take into any match with any team and know how to deal with in-game situation in an optimal way. Let's hop into an exhibition game between two teams that we will both control, and then first I will cover the most standard and solid defensive formation that you can pretty much always use with any kind of team you're playing to defend against most attacks as good as you can. Of course, your attacking formation will vary depending on your team, depending on whether you want to do a strength-based play or passing play, or whether you are a more bashy or an agile team, and how your opponent sets up. But the defense usually looks mostly the same. I will show you the setup and why it actually is the way it is. Tails never fails, we all know that. We all know that. Now, the rule of Blood Bowl is that you must have at least 3 players in the line of scrimmage. When you're defending, line of scrimmage, by the way, is this line. When you're defending, you don't want more than 3, because the other player attacks first and he will just kick your ass. You might as well have only 3 people get their asses kicked. So the most standard way of doing it is just, if you have a really tough guy, like 5 strength Augur, and let's imagine this was an elf team, and they had all strength 3, then you want to put your Augur in here, because the elf teams with strength 3 against strength 5 would have a tough time of hitting him. But against orcs that actually could match my Augur to mostly, I want to keep that Augur safe and just put the standard 3 most throwaway garbage players into the line of scrimmage together. And then you don't want to have anyone in the second row, because there is a kickoff event that will allow the other player to actually move forward for free and still be able to attack you, and then more than 3 players will get their asses kicked for free. So you want to be 3 tiles away from the line. And the most standard formation looks pretty much like this. And then the mirror of that on the other side. I suppose it would also work if you set it up like that. But that's pretty much the formation. Those players are protecting each other, and these guys will just get their asses kicked. The nice thing about this formation is that, let's imagine this orc player will set up a blitz. He wants to break through the right side or the left side, because that's where the Augur isn't, and he gets 1 blitz per turn. Let's say he attacks this lineman over here and knocks him out. I'm actually gonna do that. And let's imagine I wanna break through on the right side here. If I want to blitz this guy, how do I create a hole so that I can maybe run my catcher in? Let's say I was doing a pass play and I wanted to sneak my catcher in. If I want to create a hole, I need to beat up all 3 of these guys, and then I have a tiny little hole in the middle, which actually allows the other player to attack me from both sides and have a really good position. Or I get to attack this guy and bash his head in. And then let's even imagine this was a success. Even if this was a success, removing 1 guy from any kind of tile of this defensive setup does not create a hole. Also, it's very important to have the player in the front 2 tiles away, 3 tiles away from the edge of the field rather than 2 tiles, so that he is much harder to surf. If I had a frenzy guy who could attack twice, and let's say this blitzer was in a defensive formation this close to the line, then let's say this guy has frenzy, he hits me from here, gets a push, and then gets a push again, and suddenly I am surfed. But this guy, if I get frenzy, I try to push him towards the end zone, well, suddenly I can't get enough, so there's no way to surf that player easily. That's why you always want the lines to go away from the edge towards the other player. Get the guy in the front 3 tiles away from the border. And this defensive formation is basically the standard play that you want to always make unless you really know what you're doing. This is the defensive formation you want. The way kicking works is that you first roll a 1d8 for the direction in which the ball will scatter, and then you roll 1d6, so it can scatter off between 1 to 6 tiles in that direction, which means you must, without a skill of kick, you must never 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You must never put it closer to the edge than this, like 7, because it falls and then it bounces an additional tile, perhaps even 2 tiles. So if you want to never ever have a chance for the ball to scatter out and allow the other player to give it to someone, then you basically count from the edge of the field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the direction it can go, and then you kick towards there. Because where you click and where it kicks will be vastly differing, and what you actually want to do is minimize the risk of it falling out of the pitch, and then the enemy player will actually give it to someone that he wants to have the ball. So you basically, if you want to put the ball in a corner, you'll have to cross your fingers for that, because your first priority is to just not have it fall out, and that means you're aiming for the middle always. Now, the most important concept in Blood Bowl is the concept of risk management. Because a failure in a dice roll ends your turn, you want to do the moves that have no risk first, and then you want to make very safe moves, and then you want to make safe moves, and then you want to do moderately risky moves, and then you want to do the very risky moves. Sometimes you will prioritize a more risky move if it's also more important, but generally you do the free stuff first, and then you gradually increase the level of risk as your turn progresses. So you will accomplish in your turn as much as you can before the luck screws you. So before you do any kind of punching, like, oh shit, I can actually blitz, go here and then blitz this guy quickly. It's a 2-die block, it's so good now. First you do the free stuff. Picking him up is free. So you pick him up first. Make it a habit that first thing you do during your turn is pick up all your players. Unless you want to blitz with a player who is down, you want to stand up and blitz immediately, you just pick them all up as the first thing you do. Second thing you do in your turn, you position your players the way you want them. And the third thing you do is the blockings. If I was playing the human right now, and I wanted to pick up the ball, first thing I would do is move someone towards the ball, like the blitzer, and then I would pick it up. You first move, first pick people up, and then you do the blitzing stuff. So then I get a 2 dice block, and only then I dare do a 1 dice block. Because, you know, things can happen. And throughout the entire game, the most important thing you're doing is minimizing your own risk and forcing your opponent to do more risky stuff. Like putting this ogre here with guard made the orcs actually have really bad dice blocks. Like this was a single dice block, that was a single dice block over here, because that ogre with guard forced the orcs to do more risky stuff than the humans had to do. Moving the ogre here was free. And if you minimize your own risk and maximize the risk for the opponent, it'll more often than not, statistically speaking, allow you to win the game. Now, because so many people get it wrong, I feel like I need to add this as part of the tutorial, the blocking mechanics. How does blocking work? You need to understand it in order to be able to predict when you will get a double dice attack result and when you won't get that really safe and nice double dice results. Simplest example, two players, strength 3 each, facing against each other. It's just a single dice. Their strength is equal. Now, when you get a strength advantage, a +1 strength advantage from an assisting player, as you can see now I got a double dice, because this guy is assisting as indicated by his symbol and by his +1 number attached to him. He basically gives me +1 strength. So I get an additional dice. Now if I am at 1 strength deficit, for example, this orc would now have a double red dice, which means I roll a double dice and the opponent chooses the result, which is terrible and you should never do it. I have 3 strength human here against a 4 strength orc, so now I have a 1 strength deficit, and it's a double die against. If I move in 1 assist, it gives me +1 strength, and then it's as if our strength was equal at 4, and then I get a single dice. Now, if I also take this augur and assist again, I get a +1, and then I have 5 strength against his 4, and then I get a double dice result, which is what you want, at least. So far, that's pretty simple. Here's the interesting part. The assists only work if there's no one else in the tackle zone of that player, unless the player has guard. So basically, if the orc moves in here, then this was a double dice result before, because this guy was assisting. Now if I click, there is no more assist symbol, because the orc cancels it out. And this one actually has the guard skill, which means his assist, cannot be cancelled out. So this orc will actually, if I attack this guy, he will assist. He will assist, giving me a -1 strength, which means even if I get a new assist, if you want to get a fresh assist into a fight, you need to put it in a place where no one else will cancel it out. So let's say if by some reason I wanted to put an assist like there, it wouldn't even work, because this guy would just cancel it out. Whereas an assist here will not be cancelled out, and thus it can properly work. And then I get a +1, but the guarding player is assisting, so it's actually still a strength 3 task, strength 3 for me and strength 4 for him, and I can't do it. I would need to put this guy next to me, and then I have an equal of strength 4 with 2 assists, and -1 gives me strength 4, so I can have a single die. I would need to put one more guy here, and then I would actually be able to knock him down with the double dice. It's much easier in a big brawl to attack the guarding player directly, because he cannot assist himself, and he is not any more resistant to my assist. Now see, this guy cannot assist me from here because the big orc is actually cancelling out my assist. Now I'm not sure if I can pull it off with the RNG, but if you had, let's say, an elf team, or this guy actually has dodge. So I can dodge out and put him here, and suddenly, because I shifted my position, it's a double dice from a single dice. Magic! Or understanding of mechanics. His assist is no longer cancelled out by anyone, and then I can take out the player with guard, and then fighting against this orc will be much easier. As you will see when I end my turn, this orc is suddenly in a lot of trouble and has red die against my humans. So keep it in mind to put your assists in a place that it won't be cancelled out. And if you want to cancel out enemy assists, well, do it in the most efficient way. It will come in, this knowledge of tackle zones will come in very handy when I will start talking about cage attacks and cage play. The basic cage is your standard way of scoring with a bashy team, and is still very important for an agile team to know how to do. It's the most standard formation for protecting your ball carrier with people around him. And this is the way you do it best. This is the cage, this is the only cage, this is the cage you want. A ball carrier in the middle and 4 at the corners. This formation is the toughest thing you can make up that the opponent will have to break. There is no way to properly attack the ball carrier without basically, let's say this augur wasn't even, I mean this big orc wasn't even here. Let's just knock his ass flat. And then, how do you attack this ball carrier? I mean, basically, let's say you still had Blitz. Even if you still had Blitz, how do you go in? If you try to go in and attack him with the Blitz, you are dodging into 2 tackle zones. And that means you get a -2 modifier on your dodge. It's pretty much not gonna happen unless you are rolling a 6 or something. So, if this orc was standing here, then the cage would be crap. You always want them at the edges, because if the orc was standing here, then you basically get a blitz in the corner. You go into this spot and then you attack him from this direction. Let's imagine a player actually fucked up his cage. Put the orc over here and oh, it's still defending him, right? Except he isn't. Or let's say, let's put it in here to demonstrate the example. Oh, it's still defended by this guy, right? I mean, I'm just gonna assist in the block and then it's gonna be all good. Except, all I need to do is then just cancel out his assist with the guy here. And then the blitz gives me a single dice, which, you know, against the ball carrier, it's a pretty scary thing, a single dice. It's like a 25% chance to lose the ball already. And even if it doesn't work, I can knock him off the cage and then tackle zone him multiple times to make it even more risky. It comes down to the same principle of maximizing the riskiness for your opponent. You will very rarely have a guaranteed way of breaking the cage, but if the opponent does it wrong and you can do a single dice blitz, then you're maximizing the risk for the opposing player. I will talk more about countering the cage later, but for now, keep in mind that the actual standard proper way of caging is 4 players at the corners over here. Don't do such dodges, by the way. It's just for the demonstration. It shouldn't happen. And this is basically the only cage you want. Some could say that, oh, maybe I should put more players into the cage and it's gonna be stronger, right? Actually wrong. It's not gonna be stronger if you put more players in. It's probably gonna screw me and I'm not gonna be able to demonstrate. Oh wow, it's the luckiest dodges in the tutorial. If you actually try to strengthen your cage by putting additional player in, it gets a little awkward because, see, if I get a push over here... No, where would I need the push? Oh yeah, I would need to push from this direction. And then... what you see here is a chain push. If this guy cannot go into any of these directions freely, then I get to chain push an additional player, and then obviously I'm going to choose the ball carrier, and because this guy tried to strengthen the cage, he actually weakened it by allowing me to chain push much easier and knock the ball carrier out of the center of the cage, at which point I could, you know, kill this orc over here. And that allows me to put multiple tackle zones on the ball carrier, which is something you as the orcs would never want happen. So don't try to strengthen your cage by putting an additional player in the middle. It's only gonna hurt you against an experienced player who will chain push you then. 4 players around the cage, and then if you want to strengthen it further with other people, just put them around the cage in sensible intervals that will limit the other player's mobility towards the cage. Or put some players in the scoring range and threaten a passing play if your team is even half good at that. But basically 4 players at the corners, that's the standard cage, and then you basically do your best to advance. Now to bust the cage, you can either do a blitzing action and then put as many players around the cage as possible, which is the strength-based solution against caging. You basically just blitz to knock off one corner and then pile on as many freaking players in there as possible to maximize the risk for the other player, who will have to do as many attacks as possible. It works particularly well when you've got higher strength and the guard skill that allows your assists to never be countered. Without those skills, it's very risky to do that, because it will actually risk a lot of injuries, as you are basically allowing the other player to punch you and hoping he gets a bad result when punching. It works well when your team has a strength advantage. When you are at a strength disadvantage, but at an agility advantage, the other way to counter caging... Now, let's imagine that these are really green elves and these are really strong humans. and you are actually at a strength disadvantage, and attacking the cage directly will only get you injured with your low armor value, and it's not an efficient way. You don't have guard, you don't have strength bonus. So the other way, the more agility-based way of dealing with the cage, is you basically dodge out with everyone to not get punched, and set up a defense one tile away from the cage every single turn. You dodge away with every player, with your really dodgy and agile team, and you set up a defense like this in front of the cage, so that the cage can only safely advance one tile forward and no further, which you know, you have only 8 turns to score. If you play such delaying tactics against the other player, he will sooner or later just run out of time and have to do something extremely risky to try to score, otherwise he will lose the match by failing to score on his half, and then you will score on your half, on your half. So basically, you put 2 players deep defense in front of the cage, and then how the hell do you deal with that? This is the best cage defense if you've got a lower strength and higher agility team. Basically, the options for the stronger team is then, you know, if you blitz one guy, it still doesn't create a hole because there's a guy right behind them. That's quite problematic. So the caged player is then forced to actually just go massive tackle zone on you, and he will probably have more guard and more strength, so he will be able to fight you most likely. And then he still is advancing only one tile forward. Let's say the humans are way stronger than the other team, and they just advance like this, doing a very aggressive thing, with a guard player in the middle that you cannot easily remove. Now, if you're the weaker team over here and you have no good options for attacking, you then just use your dodge to do a very easy roll if you have a dodge and higher agility, to just step back one tile, and you just do the same thing all over again, and for 8 turns, he will have to do something really risky, or get lucky killing some of your players, or injuring some of your players, removing them from the pitch, and thin out your defenses, because it's quite a hard defense to break through. This is how you deal with a caging player if you've got the lower agility team that doesn't fail dodges that often. So those are the way to cage and deal with caging. Now, I won't go too in-depth into pass plays, because as I said, it is a guide about general principles. So here's the general principle of passing play, if you want to play an agile team, and you want to do some passing plays. Well, your goal on the first turns is to basically just sneak your catchers into a scoring position. Scoring position is when you can catch the ball and just go score in the same turn. If you've got 8 movement allowance, that means you need to be within 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 with the go for it distance from the touchdown zone. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, yeah, so I want to be on the same line as these guys. That's that's the minimum I need to sneak my catchers through, so that one of them can receive the pass and to score immediately. You never want to pass unless you are moving in and scoring in the same turn. So basically, as I said about minimizing risk, first move a player into the ball. That moving player next to the ball, that's nice, that's already done. And then picking up with sure hands, I believe, is safer than sneaking in those catchers. So the second step would be picking up the ball and setting up a nice cage. Now, because you are the more agile team, you will not want to fight the strong humans with a guard, auger, and whatnot in the front line, so you will want to dodge away. But this dodge is more risky than dodging on a catcher. Or, in fact, no, it's the same risk, but dodging on a catcher is more important. So do the more important moves first. Contrary to popular belief, dodging away from 2 tackle zones is actually just as safe as dodging away from 1 tackle zone. It's the same roll. But if you dodge into tackle zones, only that is more scary. Into a scoring position here, and you can actually go 2 tiles forward to also be able to score without any go for it. And if I didn't screw around, I would have another catcher sneaking in there, and then this catcher to sneak in will have to dodge into a tackle zone, so that's a little more risky. But that's what you want to do as elves. You want to do all the risky bullshit and see how much it works. And hell, more often than not, it actually will work. And now you've got two guys in the scoring position. You may want to spread your catchers. Generally, you don't want to go for it until there's a good reason for it. But I would say that spreading your catchers around is a decent enough reason to go for it, so that they cannot tackle zone all of them with a single guy. And then you want to complete the cage in here, probably. Because why would you want to engage the humans if you can avoid it? Of course, this thrower should have gone here before I did all the risky stuff. For the purposes of the demonstration, I'm kind of in a hurry here. And that's how you set up a pass play. And then to deal with it, the human player basically has to cover the catchers. The best way to do it is here, so that they will need to do at least more than one dodge or a blitz action against you. If you cover from here, then he could dodge out to the right side, but here he has to do one dodge and then another dodge. So as much as you can, cover them like that. You can't cover the middle one, so you want to instead just beat him up and knock him flat on his ass. Except, I suppose, when you don't have an access to him. In which case, you create the access to him. And then cover him from the back, which is the most optimal way. And then you use the rest of the players to put the pressure on the cage, which is not easy to do. And then the second turn of the passing scoring turn is basically to go as close as you can and then do the pass. Figure out a way to do it the safest way possible, because see, in the green circle it's actually easier to pass. You do a single dodge roll, but that might still be safer. And then there will be a -1 modifier for catching with one guy in the tackle zone of the elf, but he still made it. And then, you know, some people don't know this. It's really important to know. You can actually blitz. Just select the icon of blitz here on the right side. To activate blitz, create the lightning effect for your guy, and then do your normal punching. And then after that normal punching, you will be able to move as if it was a blitz turn, which it is. You can declare blitz by using this button, and then that's your passing score, 2-turn score right there. That's how you basically, that's the general basic idea of the passing play. First turn, put as many catchers as you can into scoring position. Second turn, figure out a way to throw it to them, and then you can do a blitzing move, you can do a dodge away, whatever works for you, and just put it in, just go put it in. Remember that you also can do a handoff and a pass in the same turn. If you are really in a hurry and you need to transport the ball a long distance, it may be a good idea to run your full distance next to another player from your own team, hand off the ball to that player, and then that player will be able to run and still do a pass. You cannot do two passes, you cannot do two handoffs, but you can do a handoff and a pass. And then the third player can run in and score, which basically means you can have your ball carrier here, and then you run over here, pass to the catcher runs forward and hands it off to another catcher in a scoring position, then the other catcher basically puts it in. And that way, the elven bullshit can score from one side of the pitch to the other in one turn. It's not even that risky. It's actually a very legit play to do one pass and then one handoff. Remember to prioritize the pass with the thrower who actually has skills for it, and then the pass with people who don't have those skills. Another important aspect of Blood Bowl that people tend to misunderstand sometimes is surfing, crowd surfing. When you push an enemy player out of the boundaries of the pitch, he gets greeted by the crowd in a very pleasant and relaxing way. You need to do it in a way that it is directly pushing him there. and a defender stumbles, defender down, push result, all of them work. And then what you want to do is not follow him, because if you follow him, then you risk getting counter-served next turn. Now, when you push him out, he is doing an armor check and then an injury check by, you know, getting beaten up by a crowd. It's pretty painful. And even if he succeeds in an armor check and doesn't get hurt in any way, he is still out until the end of the drive. This is a very effective way of removing the enemy players from the pitch, getting a numerical advantage. Super important. Always do it. Always do it. Now, another way of surfing the enemy player, if let's say this movement was wasted and you got this tile blocked, or there's an enemy here and you cannot basically attack from here and you still want to surf him, it's still surfable. But if you do it like this, you will just push him there. You need to block the possibility of him being pushed along the line by taking one of your players and planting him right here. Be careful of Blood Bowl pathing, by the way. Cyanide is not the best at designing those things. You want to put your lineman, be nice to me. Put your lineman in there. Be nice, RNG. Don't make him fall. Thank you. And then the surfing will still work because you've blocked this tile. The only way he can actually go is out the door. The fuck is happening right now? He's got sidestep. God damn it. This is the worst demonstration I've ever done in my life. If he didn't have sidestep, which allows him to choose where to go, he would have been surfing right now, alright? I guess you can just take my word for it. Hang on, let me just show you on someone who doesn't have the friggin' sidestep. You get yourself surfed. Don't follow. Told you it can work. Told you it can work. Now, if your player ends up on the side here and you can't move him anymore, how do you protect from getting surfed? Basically, you have to put one next to him over here so that the enemy players cannot attack him directly and push him out directly. And you want to make it unable for the opponents to take this tile. It's very hard to defend against surfing because they can then... I suppose if they blitz this guy and put him here, they don't have a blitz to attack this guy and actually surf him. So you want to limit the possibility of the enemy actually getting there by setting up some tackle zones around that place. And then that blitzer would have to maybe go all the way around, so if you also set a tackle zone here, then it's gonna be much harder to actually surf your guy if you defend this location and this location. So that's how you could save your player from surfing. But basically when you surf the opponent, don't follow up, don't stand yourself next to the line. It's bad for you, it's bad for your health. Here's another way of surfing the opponent that may not be immediately obvious, but it's pretty important to take an advantage of it. If you've got a brawl next to the end zone, you can always actually just put them closer to there. If you've got moves ready without having to blitz for them, if you've got attacks ready without having to blitz for them, it basically allows you to prioritize the push result against the opponent, and then the only thing left to do is to figure out the way, if you've been paying attention you know what I'm doing, to put a guy in there behind them, so the only way to go is out. Actually, because this guy is already taken, the only way to do it would be to blitz from behind. So this was a mistake, and this was the right angle actually to do it. I didn't notice that this blitzer here actually was unable to move, and there he goes. You can also do some crazy shit with frenzy characters, but if you're playing that kind of team, you probably know what you're doing anyway. You basically can attack twice with frenzy, so you prioritize the push on the first attack, putting him right against the border, and then you push him out on the second attack. So, what have you learned in this guide? Well, the most important thing, manage your risk, do the free moves first, pick up your guys, move your guys, without the go for it, and then do the dodgy and blocky stuff that actually is risky. Prioritize that which is more important first, prioritize that which is less risky first. Second of all, the standard defensive formation, 3 garbage or really strong players in the front, depending if you have a strength advantage or not, and then 3 tiles away from the line of scrimmage, 2 guys covering each other, 2 guys covering each other, same thing mirrored on the other side. That's the standard defensive formation. You've learned how to make a cage, ball carrier in the middle, guys at the corners, no one else inside the cage. Only these 5 players make a cage, the others scattered around the cage to limit enemy mobility or brawling on the sidelines or surfing the enemy players. Against the cage, you either blitz and then put a lot of guys next to the cage in the same turn to overwhelm with a strength and guard advantage. Or if you're a weaker team, you set up lines of 2 around the cage, 1 tile away from the cage, and slow it down until the cage runs out of time and is forced to do something risky. Set up such lines if you're the more agile team. You've learned how to do the basics of agility plays, of passing, scoring turns. You put your catchers in the scoring position, as many of them as possible, sneak them in, and grab the ball and come as close as possible. And then the next, while still being safe and in a cage. And then next turn, you pass, and then you score, or you move, you pass. You move, you hand off, and then you move and you pass. You can hand off and then pass to your catchers, and then you immediately score. Never pass to a guy and then just end your turn there, because you're basically handing the ball to the enemy by hoping he doesn't knock you down. He probably will. You basically need to pass and score in a single turn, which means you need to count how many tiles you need to be to the touchdown zone to still be able to do it. A general good practice is to always have 1 guy in a scoring position if you're the more agile team, like the Elves, or you have a good passing guy. So even when you're on the defensive, even if you're defending, just on the off chance the enemy will do something risky and fail and you manage to grab the ball, having 1 guy in the scoring position will then let you actually turn the match around really fast. Instead of grabbing the ball and be like, what do I do with it now? You will actually be able to go and try and score. So keep it in your mind to always have 1 guy in a scoring position in case something crazy happens. You've learned how to crowd surf people. You basically need to attack directly in or block this tile, and then you can attack from this spot. You can also do a normal free push and then blitz in. You can do frenzy plays. Frenzy basically can just surf a guy that's standing here. If you're playing against a frenzy team, this is the minimum safe distance from the end zone. You put your guy here, you basically invite the frenzy guy to attack you from here, get a push you there, and then you're out. So against a frenzy team, this is the minimum safe distance. Against a normal team, this is the minimum safe distance against getting surfed. Take advantage of surfing as often as possible. Remember, you can click on the blitz icon, hit someone, not die, and then you'll still be able to move. Oftentimes when you're blitzing, you want to say no to the follow-up, so that you have more freedom in choosing where to move. Be smart about that as well. Remember, when you're kicking the ball, you want to aim at the middle. You're basically counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 from the corner, and you're putting it somewhere here in the middle to minimize your chances of actually knocking the ball out of bounds and just handing it to the enemy player. You always kick into the very middle, and then when it ends up in the corner, hey, you got lucky. Unless you get the kick skill, which allows you for a little bit more precision, but still, remember that not scattering out of the field is way more important than putting it in the corner when it comes to slowing down your opponent. I hope these plays will help you out in your Blood Bowl victories, and may the Nuffle be with you. Because Nuffle is so much more important than what I have shared with you today. Hope you enjoyed, thanks for your support. More guides to come. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you've got any suggestions for future guides, any game you would like me to figure out for you that I've been streaming, any specific problem you're struggling with, let me know. I will be keeping an eye on the comments and responding to sensible questions. I will also be taking suggestions for future guides as the milestones for your support.